Ready? Awesome. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Logan COF. The topic that I will be going over this evening with you is hydraulic fracturing, aka fracking. For those of you who do not know, fracking is defined as the process used in 9 out of 10 natural gas wells in the United States, where millions of gallons of water, sand, and chemicals are pumped underground to break apart the rock and release the gas. The proposition that I will be presenting to you this evening is hydraulic fracturing causes adverse effects on the nation's water supply. For my secondary claims, I will discuss the amount of water used per well, water contamination, and the effect of fracking's wastewater on the environment. So going into my first secondary claim, each fracking well requires up to 8 million gallons of water. A specific instance in 2014, as much as 35 million gallons of fresh water were removed from a nearby aquifer in Michigan to be used in just one fracking well. The Environmental Protection Agency estimates that approximately 35,000 wells are fractured across the United States annually. Assuming the majority of these wells are horizontal, the annual water requirement ranges from 70 to 140 billion gallons. This is equivalent to the total amount of water used each year in roughly 40 to 80 cities with a population of 50,000, or 1 to 2 cities with a population of 2.5 million. California's current drought has greatly increased water competition in areas with oil and gas wells, 96% of which are located in areas experiencing severe water shortages. Going into my secondary claim, hydraulic fracking has led to multiple accounts of water contamination. In 2012, a local farmer of Shafter, California, recorded a video of oil company Vintage Productions illegally dumping fracking waste into an unlined pit that came in contact with reclaimed water for farming. A study by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences of the United States of America analyzed 141 drinking water wells across the Appalachian Plateaus, physiographic province of northeastern Pennsylvania, to examine natural gas concentrations and isotopic signatures of shale gas wells. Methane was detected in 82% of drinking water samples, with average concentrations 6 times higher for homes 1 kilometer or closer to these wells. Going into my third claim, the largest threat from fracking on the environment is not merely from the fracking itself, but from the water waste that is put back into wells, or wastewater wells across the U.S. Wastewater from fracking contains toxic chemicals used in fracking fluid, as well as natural contaminants from deep underground, including total dissolved solids, organic pollutants, and normally occurring radioactive materials such as radium. The U.S. Geological Survey, or researchers from the United States Geological Survey and other institutions have tied earthquake surges in 8 states, including Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio, Kansas, and Arkansas, to oil and gas operations. So basically the water that is being pumped back, this wastewater that they get from the wells that they use for fracking, that's pulled back out from the wells after fracking operation has taken place, is pumped into these wells, and a mixture of this contaminated water with all the fluids and everything that are already inside of it, mixed with the rock and everything, this shale that hasn't been touched yet in these wells, is causing earthquakes, anywhere from sizes from 2.6 to 4.8. So, in conclusion, hydraulic fracking causes adverse effects on the nation's water supply. Thank you.
Right, well, the propositions identified, there's a preview. The secondary points, though, in the preview are really just labels for topics. They don't really make any claims. On the first point, when you get to the body of the speech, it doesn't really make a claim either. Now, the second and the third ones are written as declarative statements, so we know what inference you're trying to make there. But the first one just seems to be setting up a lot of data for the presentation. The data is usually presented with a source, so I thought you did a pretty good job on that. Some information, though, seems to be a little bit speculative based on the total amount of water. For instance, you're doing your own math on that one, and I assume it's pretty accurate. I'm not doing the math as we go along. I'm sure that the response speaker will be looking at that very closely. One of the things that we need to do is put that into context. I did think that you gave a context about the amount of water usage that we're dealing with. The question about shortages, though, I think needs to be developed a little bit more, especially when you mentioned California's drought. Is that water competition going to be something that affects people in the cities? Since we don't know where all those 35,000 wells are, I assume that some of them obviously are in California, but that was the one place that we had a drought, and I don't know that they're worried about water shortages in some other parts of the country, like, well, like those places that are underwater on the East Coast right now. That's a little bit problematic. The wastewater dumping issue was an interesting point, except that it did sound like it was illegal. So the notion that people are not observing the rules or the laws, that introduces a different wrinkle. Then the source of the problem is not the fracking itself, but the violation of the rules that becomes the problem. And I think you need to demonstrate that that's a more widespread practice if that's going to be a danger that you argue for. The discussion about the methane concentrations is okay, although there may, the connection there is, a statistical one. The notion that the fracking had something to do with the methane that is in the area, it might be the other way around. Maybe that's why they're there to do the fracking, because that's where the gas is. So it's a little uncertain as to whether or not the fracking is what's releasing this in the area. The chemical composition of the wastewater is, it's not cited. Everybody I think would understand that it's not good stuff. So I don't think that that's of critical importance, although you do mention a lot of things that are in that water that are potentially dangerous. And if you wanted to build your argument a little bit more, it would probably be a good idea to cite that. The earthquake thing seems a little bit tangential to the water issue that you were talking about. So it's not about the water supply so much as it is some other side issue that's going on. So I'm not sure how relevant that is to the main proposition you're presenting. All right, thank you.